What we're seeing is that backlash against gender equality is on the rise. It is combined with also the rise of right-wing political parties and ideologies, so we can very much place it in that social context and political context.
Yeah, so Tradwives are, very literally traditional wives, or at least women, who are sometimes advocating, but sometimes also just explaining how they care about being a traditional woman, in a sense that they believe in traditional gender roles.
What makes them new is the format. Hashtag Tradwife, we see them on Instagram. They use notions of identity, lifestyle, so that format makes it something new.
And it's mainly about the representation of traditional gender roles, motherhood, and they also explain you how to do it. So how to bake, how to take care of your children, how to take care of your husband. It's very much about being submissive to the husband, and that's their role as women, and that men need to provide, that they are strong, that they need to protect. So it's a very stereotypical idea of gender roles.
It is not a traditional concept, the housewife. So the housewife is very much a modern phenomenon.
Proponents say it's my own choice, and that's a feminist choice. And opponents say, well, they are rewinding years of feminist struggles.
Another thing that we see are the racial politics of the Tradwife phenomenon. And let me be very clear, this is not to say that everyone who identifies as a Tradwife is part of the far right. So let me say that at the outset. However, Tradwives as a phenomenon, as a movement, aligns very well with the kind of femininity that is being promoted on the far right. So there's a question of gender there, but there's also the question of race. At this moment, the far right is very much focused on declining birth rates in Europe. So there is a convergence between right-wing racist and racial politics of wanting more white babies and Tradwives and the lifestyle that they propose, in which indeed in the domesticity there is space for having more babies, and that is actively encouraged.
The people who originally started it were not necessarily meaning to advocate for a certain lifestyle or a certain political view, and I think now more and more Tradwife has become this broader thing with all kind of different subgroups that are advocating for different types of things. I would say like Instagram is where it mostly started, but I know they have moved to TikTok. And I would say also the consequences of it would be a bit bigger on TikTok because of how the algorithm works. Once it is in your algorithm, for example, because people listen to this interview and they're like, oh, Tradwives, that's interesting, let's Google it. Then you see this, and the thing is, the way algorithms work, as far as we know, is that once you click on it, you get new content served, right? So, and of course we know from YouTube research, for example, that a lot of this extreme right-wing content can then be attached to it. So even if the Tradwife content itself may not necessarily be like content that should not be shared as much, then the content that's attached to it by the algorithm could get you into this bubble of, for example, like advocating for all kinds of political views. So it's always like a few people that want to share a view or advocate for something, and then other people get on this bus and make use of the popularity to advocate for something else, and then the mainstream takes over again, and then, you know, in the end, a majority view gets sort of pushed.
The online world is really part and connected to the real world, and I think that is really important to realize. And social media makes it much easier to spread these ideas, and these ideas go viral. Some of these videos have close to 1 million views. They play a role in normalizing stereotypical ideas about gender that are sometimes misogynist and discriminatory, and those are threatening our democracy.
So yeah, there's always this balance between okay to have a platform and to share your views, but then when that becomes overemphasized, and it's also advocating for things that are not as advantageous, especially for younger people growing up, finding out the roles that they need to have and can have in the world, for women and girls, but also for boys and people who do not identify as any of those genders. I think that space should still grow, instead of a traditional one that we have sort of trying to say goodbye to.